What makes a footballer go from being laughed at as a meme to being labeled the most hated player on the planet? Vinicius Jr. was supposed to be just another Brazilian wonderkid. Explosive pace, flashy dribbles, a smile that never left his face. But what came next, nobody expected. From mocking headlines in Spain to racist chants echoing in stadiums, from almost joining Barcelona to becoming Real Madrid's decisive hero in a Champions League final. His story is not just about football, it's about fame, hate, resilience, and a controversy that refuses to end. Because Vinicius Jr. isn't just a winger, he's a lightning rod. Every goal, every dance, every confrontation sparks chaos, dividing fans, fueling rivalries, and putting his name in headlines across the world. Some see him as the future of the sport, others as its biggest problem. But how did it all start? How did a kid from one of the toughest neighborhoods in Brazil rise to the very top, and at the same time become one of the most controversial figures in modern football? Vinícius José Paixão de Oliveira Jr. was born on July 12, 2000, in São Gonçalo, one of the toughest and poorest areas on the outskirts of Rio de Janeiro. His childhood was marked by chaos. His father was unemployed, his grandfather too, and his mother worked endless shifts just to afford the bus rides that would take her son to training. The family had very little, but what Vinícius did have was a ball at his feet, always. On the cracked streets of São Gonçalo, surrounded by poverty and violence, the young boy found his escape. He would spend hours kicking the ball against the walls of his tiny home, practicing his control, perfecting his dribble. Futsal became his first love. In those smaller courts, tight spaces, and frantic games, Vinícius learned the speed, skill, and improvisation that later defined his style. Even then, it was obvious. This wasn't just another kid from the favela. His feet moved differently. His hunger burned brighter. People around him could see he was special even when he was just a skinny kid running barefoot through the streets. By 2010, Vinícius was officially part of Flamengo's youth academy, and it didn't take long for everyone to realize he was different. While other kids his age struggled just to keep up, Vinícius was already being pushed to train with players 2 years older. He wasn't just surviving, he was dominating. Fast forward to 2017, and the world finally got its first real glimpse of what this boy could do. At the Copa São Paulo de Futebol Júnior, the most prestigious youth tournament in Brazil, Vinícius lit up the stage. His dribbles were electric, his runs unstoppable, and his confidence unshakable. Suddenly, Brazil had a new star. Newspapers compared him to the likes of Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, and Lucas Moura, all of whom had made their names in this same competition. But it wasn't just hype. That same year, he exploded on the international stage with Brazil's U17 team. He led them to the South American Championship, finished as top scorer, and was voted the tournament's best player. At just 16, he wasn't just a prospect anymore. He was the crown jewel of Brazil's new generation. Naturally, the biggest clubs in Europe were already circling. Barcelona and Real Madrid both wanted him. For months, the media reported that Barcelona had the upper hand. He was supposedly a lifelong fan, cried watching their famous remontada against PSG, and even had agents leaning toward the Camp Nou. Some outlets even announced he was already a Barcelona player. But then, everything changed. During the U17 tournament, Real Madrid stepped in. Florentino Perez was determined not to repeat the Neymar saga, losing a Brazilian prodigy to Barcelona again. Madrid made their move, offering more money than Barca and more security for his family. On May 23, 2017, at just 16 years old, Vinícius signed with Real Madrid for a staggering 45 million euros, the most expensive transfer ever for a player that young. When Vinícius finally landed in Madrid in the summer of 2018, the expectations were crushing. He was a teenager with a 45 million euro price tag, labeled as the next Neymar. The Santiago Bernabéu expected magic, but what they got at first was laughter. His early games were raw, the pace and dribbling were there, but his finishing? A disaster. Every missed shot, every poor touch became a viral clip. Spanish media mocked him relentlessly, turning him into a living meme. They even gave him the cruel nickname Neymar Nevave, a dig meaning he'd never live up to the hype. When he joined the first team, things didn't get easier. Yes, he had flashes of brilliance. Dribbles that left defenders on the floor, runs that tore open games. But in front of goal, the mistakes kept piling up. He became the internet's favorite target. Memes flooded Twitter after every game. Headlines questioned if Madrid had wasted their money. To make matters worse, Eden Hazard arrived from Chelsea, pushing Vinicius down the pecking order. Even within his own squad, doubts grew. In one infamous match, Karim Benzema was caught on camera telling Ferland Mendy not to pass Vinicius the ball because he's playing against us. For a young player still finding his feet, that moment was devastating. Zidane, too, often left him on the bench, unsure if Vinicius was ready for the big stage. For 2 long years, he floated in limbo. Neither a star nor a complete flop. A player with dazzling moments but lacking the end product. And every mistake only fueled the ridicule. But Vinicius wasn't built to quit. He trained harder, worked obsessively on his finishing, and used the memes as motivation. Little did the critics know, the kid they mocked was about to flip the script, because the turning point was coming. And when it arrived, Vinícius Jr would go from meme to Madrid's ultimate weapon. By 2021, the jokes about Vinícius seemed endless. Missed sitters, poor decisions, and endless memes had made him the internet's favorite punching bag. But then came a man who would change his career forever. Carlo Ancelotti. Unlike others who doubted him, Ancelotti trusted Vinícius. He didn't just see a raw talent. He saw a future superstar. And he was willing to rebuild him from the ground up. Training sessions became laboratories. Rumors spread that Ancelotti even told Thibaut Courtois to let Vinícius score in practice, just to give him the confidence he desperately lacked. Slowly but surely, the results began to show. The 2021-22 season was a revelation. Suddenly, the clumsy winger transformed into one of Europe's deadliest attackers. His finishing sharpened, his decision-making improved, and his confidence skyrocketed. In La Liga, he scored 17 goals and delivered 10 assists, becoming the perfect partner for Karim Benzema. The once-mocked Brazilian was now unstoppable, blowing past defenders with the same fearless dribbling, but this time, delivering the killer final touch. And then came the Champions League, the stage where legends are born. Against PSG, his connection with Benzema shredded Paris's defense in one of the most dramatic comebacks in Madrid's history. Against Chelsea, he provided an outrageous outside-of-the-boot assist that went viral across the world. And against Manchester City, he scored a goal that felt like a video game, sprinting more than 50 meters, leaving defenders in the dust, and finishing with ice-cold precision. But the ultimate moment came in the final. Paris, Stade de France, Liverpool versus Real Madrid. In the 59th minute, Federico Valverde whipped in a low cross, and Vinícius, the same kid the world had mocked, was there at the far post. One touch, one finish, one goal. Real Madrid lifted their 14th Champions League, and Vinícius Jr became a hero. The memes were dead. The narrative had flipped. He was no longer a wasted talent. He was Madrid's new superstar, the heir to their throne of Galacticos. With the spotlight finally on him, Vinícius Jr embraced it, but in his own way. He wasn't content with just scoring goals. He wanted to celebrate them, to dance, to laugh, to stare down the crowd. For some, it was pure joy, the expression of a Brazilian who had fought his way out of poverty. For others, it was provocation, arrogance, a reason to hate him even more. His dances became the spark of endless debates. Was he disrespecting rivals or simply celebrating his culture? Every time he scored and pulled out the samba steps, commentators argued, fans booed, and opposing players lost their heads. What for Vinícius was happiness. For his enemies became fuel for anger. But it wasn't just the celebrations. Vinícius had a fire in him, one that often boiled over. He protested every foul, argued with referees, and never backed down from confrontations. Yellow cards piled up, rare for a forward, and suspensions started to follow. What was once seen as passion began to look like recklessness. And then came the rivalries. Against Mallorca, he clashed with Pablo Maffeo and Raillo so often that it turned into a soap opera of insults, fouls, and gestures every season. Against Valencia, things escalated even further, with brutal tackles, heated arguments, and eventually global headlines. In every game, there was a moment, a stare, a word, a gesture that ignited the crowd. He was no longer just a star winger, he was a villain in the eyes of half of Spain. But here's the paradox. The more the hate grew, the stronger he seemed to get. The boos didn't break him, they energized him. Every insult was met with another dribble, another goal, another dance in front of thousands of furious fans. If the gestures and confrontations had already turned Vinicius into a villain for rival fans, racism took the hate to an entirely different level. What began as boos and whistles escalated into monkey chants, slurs, and banners across multiple stadiums in Spain. Every away game seemed to bring a new incident, and instead of being protected, Vinicius often felt like he was standing alone against the world. The breaking point came on May 21, 2023, at Mestalla. Real Madrid were playing Valencia, but the football itself barely mattered. Midway through the match, Vinicius stopped, pointed at the stands, and singled out a section of fans, hurling racist insults at him. The game was paused, chaos erupted, and the cameras captured his anger, his frustration, his pain. Minutes later, after being provoked and fouled repeatedly, he lashed out at Hugo Duro and was shown a red card. As he left the pitch, he stared at the Valencia crowd and threw up the second division gesture, telling them their club was destined to fall. But amid the support, the controversy only deepened. Critics argued Vinicius provoked crowds with his behavior, while others said the abuse he suffered justified every reaction. Was he hated because of his celebrations and gestures? Or did the racism and hate come first, pushing him into becoming more defiant? It became the endless question, the egg or the chicken. By now, Vinicius wasn't just a footballer, he was a symbol. For Madrid fans, he was the fearless winger who carried the club through impossible nights. For rival fans, he was the perfect villain, a player they loved to hate. Every time he stepped onto the pitch, the atmosphere changed. You could feel the tension, the hostility, the anticipation of something boiling over. The comparisons with Cristiano Ronaldo became louder. Like Cristiano, Vinicius thrived on hate. He fed off the whistles, the insults, the boos. Where others would crumble under the pressure, he seemed to grow stronger. For every banner mocking him, he had a goal to answer. For every insult, he had a celebration waiting. Sometimes a dance, sometimes a gesture, always guaranteed to inflame the opposition. So what is Vinícius Jr. really? Is he the joyful Brazilian who dances to celebrate his goals, or the arrogant provocateur who taunts his rivals? Is he the victim of systemic racism, or the aggressor who fuels the fire with his gestures? The truth, as always, is far more complicated. Part of the hatred comes from history. In Spain, anti-Madridismo runs deep. Every generation finds a new target to despise. Guti, Sergio Ramos, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now it's Vinicius. Add his Brazilian flair, his dances, his refusal to bow down, and you have the perfect storm. But unlike those before him, Vinicius also carries the weight of racism. That alone makes his case unique and far more painful. And in the end, that's what makes him special. Because love him or hate him, Vinícius Jr. refuses to be silent. He refuses to stop dancing. He refuses to stop fighting. And in doing so, he's become something bigger than a player. He's become the most controversial, most talked about, and perhaps most important footballer of his generation.